Hello, hello. I get mesmerized by looking at that lovely stream and listening to that peaceful music. Welcome to Tea with the Druid, 182, brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. It's lovely to have you here. We've been having some just lovely, lovely weather, lots of sunshine. And do say where you're from. And lovely to see everyone from Austria to St. Lucia to Newfoundland to Holland, the west coast of Scotland and Melbourne, Australia, Washington State, Mount Shasta, hooray, humid Kent, Lübeck in North Germany. Fantastic. So good to see you. Let's think about the summer solstice, because in the Northern Hemisphere, the summer solstice is coming up on the weekend. Well, Monday at 4 a.m. in Britain, and if you're in the States, I think it'll be Sunday. Different times, but coming up soon. And so we've got some fantastic celebrations arranged online, in addition to anything you might be doing out in nature. The Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids is doing a special event on Saturday. We're having a Glastonbury-style gathering, but online on Facebook and YouTube, with some talks by Ronald Hutton and John Matthews and Penny Billington and I Steadford, and a ceremony all online on the Saturday. And then I'll be doing a ceremony on Sunday through the Synthesis Institute. I'll give you the links and the details at the end of this session. But if we look at the name for the summer solstice in the Druid tradition, it's Olban Hefin, the light of the shore. Now, it's really worth spending some time looking at that, because why is it the light of the shore? Now, the shoreline is a very interesting place. It's a liminal place, so that already gives us a clue. This liminal time, and that reminds us of Samhain, which is another liminal time, Beltane, all these times associated with the fairies. And of course, you have Midsummer's Eve, traditionally associated with the fairy folk. So why is the summer solstice a liminal time? It seems a time of year when everything is so kind of tangible and in this world that it doesn't seem liminal in the way that Samhain, for instance, is, as we shift from autumn into winter. But if you think about this, there are all sorts of tides. What happens is, on a shoreline, it's a place where the tide moves backwards and forwards. And there are all sorts of tides that affect us. But one really major tide that affects not only us as human beings, but all of nature, is the tide that moves from the winter solstice round the cycle of the year to the summer solstice. And then the movement is from the summer to the winter. And but what I mean by that is that if you think about it, the days are getting longer from the winter solstice onwards. And with that, there's more and more sunlight falling on the earth. And the energy is all towards the growth of plants. And it reaches a peak at the summer solstice. And then you have these 4 days of solsticia, where the sun seems to stand still almost. And the length of days is almost exactly the same. And then it shifts back. So it's as if there's this pause between the out-breath from winter to summer, and then the in-breath back to winter again. And what happens after the summer solstice, as the days start to get shorter, as we move towards winter, the energy of life is towards fulfillment, growth, dispersion, offering. It's a movement towards, if you like, generosity. From focusing to get the project done, focusing to get the plant growing, the move is towards letting go, releasing, harvest, giving. The ultimate giving in death, of course, at Samhain and around the winter solstice. but we can take this at so many levels. So instead of us being rather depressed by the thought that, oh God, it seems like summer's only just begun, and now you're telling me the tide is turning after the weekend and the days are going to get shorter and we're moving back to the winter solstice. That's not the way to think about it. The way to think about it is in terms of the movement being towards giving, towards generosity, from focus and then around to offering, to generosity, to dispersion. And actually, I mean, at a psychological level, we need the ability to be focused and the ability to be dispersed. Creative thinking comes when we can home in on things and get things done and focus and concentrate. But we also need to disperse our awareness and let go and relax and give. So it's a perfect rhythm between these two seasons. But what I'm suggesting is it's something that's happening physiologically too, cosmically, tangibly, actually at the level of matter and of light and of the way our bodies work and so on. What it can mean emotionally and psychologically, I think, and I want to check this out with you, is that there can be a certain kind of tension that builds towards the summer solstice. And this is something that I've noticed, and I want to check out with you, is I've noticed that whilst everybody's happy for it to be getting hotter and brighter and warmer, and we're pleased to be getting into summer, there's a certain level of intensity that comes with us, that comes with it, that builds towards the summer solstice. And then it's like a storm that breaks and it can be released and goes round again. So let's use our method that we've used before of completely unscientific research. But there are, 300 people, 300 of us watching now. So let's do, I'd like to ask you, have you noticed this either this year or in previous years? This year's a strange year because of lockdown, so maybe it's different. But have you noticed this effect of a kind of increasing intensity that may result in conflicts with people, miscommunications, just a sense of slight nervousness or tension moving towards the solstice? Now, you can just type, Sandy's written, yes, I can feel the build of energy. If you don't want to type a whole thing, just put Y or N to indicate yes or no. I'm always wary of these generalizations. And if you say to people, have you noticed how tense and difficult things are? People are always going to say yes, because there's always stuff happening for people. And it's all, but let's see. Yes, very much so. Yes, yes. Summer is always difficult despite being born on June the 20th, says Diana. Very much so. The tension definitely builds up before the solstice. Yes, not just me, but all around me I'm in conversation with, says Iona. Yes, every year, says Kai. Well, James Nolan, yes, I can feel the build of energy. Okay, so Matthew, I think maybe is talking about something absolute opposite. I get happier as it goes into the winter solstice. It's not thinking about happiness here. It's about tension building and then release. But you may have been referring to something I was saying earlier. Oh yeah, probably about being sad because the days are getting shorter. Yeah, okay. It actually looks like the surf when the energy of the two solstices circulates. A peak, then a hollow, a plant that grows, and its seed that nestles underground. Yes. Okay, well, the general consensus seems to be Mercury will be just, let's have a look here. Mercury will be just moving out of retrograde at the solstice. And that has been added into the tensions. Well, that's interesting. Chris, a different perspective here. Chris says he thinks he feels it more at the equinox. Okay. Okay. Right. And Sophia has a different one. I usually feel the tension from Immalt to Lunacy, and then everything relaxes again. Okay. Christopher White, that's an interesting one. Whoops, frozen shoulder right now. What is it? Where's Christopher? Summer was a nightmare. So much light interfered with everything. Sleep was difficult. That's interesting. Happy tension, says Holly. Let's have a look here. Great, Robin. That's great to hear. Seasonal affective disorder can be worse than the summer for some. I didn't know that. That's interesting. I always thought it was related to the winter, James. So that's really interesting to hear. Thank you. Great. Gabriella talking about expansion. Yes. Well, yes, you're right. I mean, the expansion starts really at sort of Beltane, doesn't it? As all the blossom starts coming out, and there's a sense of fullness and expansion. It goes round to Lunacy, and then, you know, the harvest comes and things start to be cut down and so on. I think that so yes, so oh yes, spring to summer always feels right. Yes, so there's something in it. I think we can say, of course, this isn't scientific, and the funk I get, and of course, I know in the States, if you're in the States, Lisa, I know how very hot and sticky it can get. But even here, it's starting to get a bit like that. If the tide is changing, couldn't that influence physiological and psychological changes in people? Absolutely, Jules. Yes. I mean, I think that's very, very, very much the case. There's, you know, just the one study that the herbalist Julian Barker has made for the Mount Hemus project that you can find on the OBOD website. It's quite fascinating where and it's not woo-woo at all. It's all based on a knowledge of endocrinology and the way our bodies work and the levels of light, the way you get what Julian calls the midpoints, where our health hangs in the most delicate of balances because of the changing light and effect and the way it's relating to us. So there are mysteries here, and I think what's exciting about living in the time we're living in is that we have the kind of open-mindedness and the understandings and instrumentation to explore these things at multiple levels. So we can talk about things that are very subtle and to do with energies and the psyche and how we're feeling deep inside, and that's a legitimate exploration. And we can also look at things at a so-called scientific level and what's happening in our physiology and so on. What I'm going to suggest is this. It feels to me like this energy is building towards its peak on Sunday evening, Monday morning, the solstice time, and then there'll be just these few days of solsticia, the sun seeming to stand still. And I always forget the exact explanation for it, but it's as if you're noticing the sunrise, it stays the same for about 4 days, and then it starts moving back the other way. What I'm going to suggest is trying a meditation during this period. See how you feel about it, to really go with this process of the tides turning and changing and just being totally open to it. Because of course what happens is it's all completely natural, these tides, and we feel them as difficult when we resist them. And if we can just kind of relax into them, maybe we can be more aligned with them, and then the gifts that these tides have can come fully into manifestation in our lives and in our health. So let's try this now. And what I'm going to suggest is that we use the moment between the out breath and the in breath, and the in breath and the out breath, as this moment of opening to the stillness in the midst of the changing of the tides. So, you know, as you breathe out, you go, and there's a kind of delicious moment that you can control. I mean, you can prolong it as long as you like, but there's a moment where you're neither breathing in nor breathing out. You just rest. And then you breathe back in again. And then at the top, same thing. Nothing happening. I'm not breathing in. I'm not breathing out. I'm just resting. And then the tide goes out and I breathe out. Rest, tide comes back in. So that's a lovely way to kind of connect ourselves with this moment. So let's try that. Let's, if you're up for it, let's go into the sacred grove, or imagine that we're in a clearing in the forest. And to do that, it might help if you close your eyes. And just imagine coming into a sacred clearing, a clearing in the woods. And you find your spot. And you find your spot on the ground, it's dry. You might want to lean against a tree or sit on a log or a stone. And you just take a while to tune into the place, sensing the earth beneath you. You sense the stillness of the earth. And then as you drop into the stillness of the earth, you become aware of the energy that's going on, the movement actually that's going on in this earth. Little creatures burrowing in the earth, water moving and circulating. All this life in the earth, giving off its own energy of life and health and balance. Do you feel as if you can smell the earth now? There's a smell, a kind of warm smell coming from the earth that makes you feel calm and relaxed. And then you sense the presence of the trees around you. You sense the presence of these trees as living beings, our brothers and sisters, with us, our guardians and protectors and friends. We sense their roots deep in the ground, drawing up the moisture, that moisture traveling up the trunk of the tree, out along the branches, and then perspiring through the leaves. And you sense these bright green leaves reaching high into the air. And you see the blue sky above you. And you breathe in the energy of this sky. And the energy of the sky meets the energy of the earth in the center of your being. And you tune into your breathing now. And without trying to change it in any way, you just become aware of it. Of the kind of rhythm that you're following, breathing in and breathing out. And you allow yourself to change this rhythm a little bit by very deliberately, as you breathe out, just stopping for a moment before breathing in, and then breathing in, pausing at the top before breathing out. And then just practice really attending to this moment of pause and creating a pause that feels just right for you, just long enough for you. And then just relax more and more into this. With every out-breath, just letting go completely. Resting in the pause at the end of the out-breath. And then breathing in, enjoying the air flowing into you and just pausing at the top. And then breathing out again. And you might like to add even a perfume of a flower, if you can imagine one, or perhaps even smell one now. And then connecting now to this sense of all of us as a group doing this together all over the world. And more research is pointing to the fact that the mind is not local. Our minds are not confined to our brains. There's a great mystery here. We're all connected in this web of consciousness. And so even though we're all spread apart all around the world, at some level we're together. Just breathing in and breathing out. Just allowing the tide to flow in as we breathe in and out as we breathe out. And we know that if we could study the body, we'd realize that there are all sorts of things happening as we breathe in and just hold our breath for a moment and then breathe out. All sorts of physiological changes are flowing rhythmically backwards and forwards. And now we let go of our awareness of the breathing, just allowing our breathing to return to normal and become aware of being seated here in the grove. And let's imagine that all our fellow meditators are around us now, and we open our inner eyes in the grove, and here they are. There's a lovely circle of people, all smiling at each other, looking at each other, rather surprised to find that we're all in the grove together. And we ask for a blessing on our lives and a blessing on the land. And you might like to imagine that you're placing your hands on the earth. So you see hundreds of us all seated around there, lovingly placing our hands on the earth, sending our love to the earth, and sending thoughts of love, of joy, of gratitude. Of gratitude for being alive here on this earth now. A blessing on our lives, a blessing on the land. And now you allow gently your awareness of the sacred grove begin to fade, as perhaps you bring your hands up to your physical heart of your physical body, just letting your awareness of the clearing fade and of all the others in the group fading too, as you become aware of being fully present here and now, seated in front of your computer or your screen or your tablet, fully present here and now. And when you feel ready, you open your eyes. Thank you, Mark. Yes. Yes, I feel the same way. Yeah. Amy, breathing in the carbon, being a great tree, breathing in the carbon dioxide and breathing out the oxygen. Very relaxing and grounding. Yes. Kate Bush has written a bit very in between. Oh, we'll watch that. Let's see if I can. I don't know. Oh yeah, I can save it to. I'm going to try to save it before it scrolls up the screen. I'll get it. I'll catch it. Okay. Wonderful. Bless you. Let me give you now. So this Saturday, let me say. So my thought, what I'm going to do, and do join me if you like, just for the 4 days, from the solstice for 4 days, I'm going to do that meditation of being in that, really entering that moment between the in-breath and the out-breath. Staying with it. Okay, I've put up here the first notice, parish notice, which is that on the OBARD Facebook and YouTube channels, starting at 10 a.m. on Saturday, there will be a welcome, a meditation, and then morning talk, and then there'll be an afternoon talk, two afternoon talks, Summer Solstice ceremony at 3:30, and then I Steadfast at 8 p.m. All UK times. They'll of course be, they'll stay on Facebook and YouTube. So if you missed them at the time, you can watch them later. But they'll be there, and look forward to seeing you there. And then on Sunday, there's a special event. I work for the synthesis. I work for a number of institutes now since I retired as being chief of the order. And one of them is the Synthesis Institute, which is working with the potential for psilocybin to help in the alleviation of the symptoms of treatment-resistant depression, and in other ways too. So it's very good work. It's very leading edge and perhaps controversial for some people, but I think the evidence is such that there is a real value in that. They've invited me to do a summer solstice celebration, and have I put it in? I think maybe I haven't. I'll put the link. That's on Zoom. That's not on Facebook or YouTube. So you do have to register for it. So there we go. Yes, it's come up. Yeah, you have to register for it, and the unusual element in that will be youth who gave a tea with the Druid a while back, who's a wonderful musician and record producer, has created a soundtrack of about 40 minutes, a 10-minute introduction soundtrack, which is a kind of panorama of the history of psychedelic music, which continues at the end, 5 minutes at the end. So there's an intro and an outro, and then in the middle, together with other wonderful musicians, including Jake G. Glover, there is a 23-minute soundtrack that I will be talking over, leading us in a solstice meditation. So if you would be interested in that, that is at 8 o'clock on Sunday, the 20th of June. That's 8 p.m. UK time. Again, if you can't manage that specific time, it will be recorded, but you do need to register in order to watch it. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, no, I plan to read it. Yeah, I've heard it's fantastic, and I do plan to read it. Good. So have a lovely week. Many, many blessings. Lots of love, and see you hopefully either on Saturday or Sunday, or if not, on Monday. Okay, bye.